So if you want to complain about where our money is being spent and why people are criticizing the government for overspending, if you think that the only reason we're subsidizing cotton farmers in Brazil is because we can't stop subsidizing American cotton farmers, that seems pretty ridiculous to me, that our money is flying out of the country to subsidize somebody else's industry, when it's all because we can't stop funding our, paying off small sectors for voting blocks just to keep ourselves in office. That's what we find disturbing. But if the protesters are angry at the corporations who are making money off of the government who's helping them out, I kind of feel like, well, you're misdirecting it, because what are you going to do? What's the solution? If you get rid of the free market, then what do you want? They obviously want more government, but I believe government is the problem. If you look at this, a situation like, okay, if government is the prostitute and the corporation is the John Bynum, who are you blaming here? I kind of feel it's more like you got a bad cop and somebody who's just bribed the bad cop. I blame the bad cop, not the guy who's trying to bribe to get something from him personally. But I do not believe that the solution to that is more government, because that's exactly what the problem is what the government is doing. Now, the other thing the Occupy people like to talk about is they like to say, oh, that top 1%, boy, they're not paying their fair share of taxes. Oh, it's all the poor are paying for it, and the rich, they just keep getting richer because they're not paying their fair share. Well, I'll not even get into who determines what a fair share is and who decides. But first of all, let's think about this. Who's paying what? And how much is being paid? In 2001, the federal budget was $1.9 trillion. That's how much they were spending just to get by from the federal budget. By the time we got to 2011, it went to 3.8. Now, I don't know about you, but I know the level of service I got from the federal government did not double in the last 10 years. I don't know what we're getting for our money in the last 10 years. But if you know that the actual income tax revenue from personal income tax was only around $1 trillion, then you know that we could just go back to spending 2001 levels and you wouldn't need an income tax at all. Corporations, what they pay in income tax is around $300 billion. So even if we took every dime sent in by all of us on our income taxes, and every dime the corporations sent in on their income taxes for the federal government, it's still not enough to pay the increase since 2001 to 2001 in the last 10 years. Just that difference alone won't even pay for it. That drives me crazy. I mean, when you think they're just spending back to 10 years ago, and I don't even know what's different now from 10 years ago, what they're spending on, but if we just kept back to 10 years ago, nobody need to pay a dime. If you honestly believe the rich pay nothing and the poor are paying all of it, you should jump at that, because then, oh yeah, now my poor people get their money back. But obviously, that is not the case. We know that I'm going to need to make some room here. We know that the rich do pay the majority of the income tax. It's just nonsense what they're saying. In fact, the top 1% of what they call the adjusted gross income of filers, top 1%, well, that's a very exclusive group. That's a very small group of filers. But they pay 38% of the total income tax revenue generated. And the top 5%, they pay like about 53%, I think. And then by the time you get to the 50%, the top 50% of filers, they're paying 97% of all the income tax generated. So how anybody can say that the poor are paying too much and the rich aren't paying anything is beyond me. Because obviously it's all being paid up there. In fact, this bottom 50%, yeah, they pay a little less than 3%. But here's the important part. 1/3 of those filers, 33%, pay nothing at all. Nothing. And half of that number, it's actually 53% of this number here, they actually get money back with their income taxes. For the child credit, and the earned income credit. So they're actually getting money back. So not only are they not paying anything, but a lot of them are getting money back. And this is just the people who filed. There's still another about 7% of the population that don't file at all. They don't need to file because they make enough money to even file a statement. So combined, 40% of the U.S. pay nothing or get money back on their income taxes. I don't know, I just feel it kind of disrupts the whole argument that they have. Are we okay on time?
Well, we've got about 15 minutes left.
Okay.
So I was hoping maybe we could get some...
Absolutely. I'm finishing up just to get right to that. Yeah. So our point is that we want to make sure that people are aware of what's going on. But there's also something you need to be aware of. They want to increase the rate. You need to be aware of something called the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve states the higher the tax rate, the lower the tax revenue after a certain point. And it just makes sense, doesn't it? This is your tax revenues as the rate, this is the rates. This is the revenue. They go up after a certain rate and then they go down. Why? People stop bothering. Why bother making money if you can't keep any of it? At one point the tax rate in this country was as high as 90%. Would you bother getting a job at McDonald's at $10 an hour if the government was going to take $9 of it from you? No, you wouldn't bother. If they take $1, okay, I'll do it. But if they're going to take $9, I'm not going to bother doing it. So the wealthy just stopped producing money, and they started hiding it, and they started doing other things to avoid taxes. So there's no point in raising the rate if it's going to bring in less revenue anyways. So it's ridiculous. So that's pretty much where we wanted to go and show you what happens with your dollars, why we need to make sure that we keep that's why we're promoting a more fair taxing system. We don't like the income tax because it's basically punishing productivity. It's punishing the people who are creating jobs and producing in this country. And frankly, when we talk about the wealthy, a high income does not equal high wealth. There's plenty of people with a lot of wealth that have no income at all, and plenty of people who make income that are underwater and struggling still. So you're even taking the wrong line to try and attack that. But I'd also challenge those Occupy protesters. A lot of them are really just socialists or communists. They want to just distribute the wealth to everybody more evenly. You name one socialist or communist country for me where the wealth is distributed more evenly than here. In every one of those cases, you've got two classes of society: those with ties to the government that are rich, and everybody else who is poor. So there's nobody but a capitalist country that could do that as well as nobody could do it as well as a capitalist country such as America, as limited as our capitalism is. Okay, definitely more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay.
You mentioned earlier that a person should be able to do what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And at what point do you feel it becomes immoral that there should be a line?
Immoral? You're talking about immoral?
Well, I mean, just what point do you think there needs to be a line?
Well, obviously, the key is that it's got to infringe on the rights of others. That is our key. A lot of people say, your right to throw your fist in the air ends at the tip of my nose. I might say a few feet before that, because I don't want to wait for it to hit my nose for you to infringe on my rights. But the point is, if you're talking about morality, now that's a tricky subject, because now it's open to interpretation. The key is, though, at what point are you infringing on somebody else's rights? The abortion issue is kind of tearing the party up a bit. It splits us into two camps, because we believe in the rights of the individual. However, there's two individuals in this situation when it comes to abortion. At what point does the fetus become a full-fledged, rightful human being? And so even within the party, you'll hear different opinions on that. Because it's not a matter of the philosophy. We all agree on the philosophy. It's a matter of applying the philosophy. And so here, that's like a tricky gray area. If you're talking about other moral issues, like is it moral to smoke drugs or take drugs or whatever, well, I may say it's stupid as hell to do it, but that's my decision. For somebody else, it may be right for him. It's not up to me to decide what he does. I have no say. I don't own him. I can't tell him that. But if you're doing anything to hurt people, obviously, child molesters, anything, crime where you actually have a victim, that's a different story. If it's a victimless crime, prostitution, things like that, where, well, we think it's wrong, we have no say in that. It's not for us to decide. It's for them to decide their own morality.
What did you do on the Federal Reserve?
Not my topic. Just not my topic. I can't really give you a good answer on that one. Obviously, I do not like the fact of a bunch of private bankers grouping together and making decisions like that. Obviously, they have made a ton of mistakes and screwed this country up before. I like the way the country was before we had one. But I'm not going to be able to give you a very detailed answer on that one, because abandoning certain things, like if we went back to the gold standard, things like that, that's where I'm worried about the transition. But I probably could do without the Federal Reserve.
It seemed to me earlier you said that government jobs don't benefit society, and that seemed to me.
I'll qualify that.
I was just going to ask, say, for example, research that the government money gets put into cancer, all these things.
Oh, no, I will not agree with that. Okay, here's the thing. You know, you have certain things the government has to do, like build highways and build roads. We agree with that. I definitely can understand that. And as long as our tax dollars are used for that, fine. But cancer research, that's not the government's role. I'm sorry, it's not the government's role to get into cancer research. We have private institutions and groups and hospitals, things like that. That's what they're for, and they can generate a ton of money doing so. There's some hospitals right now, private institutions, that beg for money, get more money than they know what to do with, and they're still out there asking for more money, and they're doing all the research. It's not the government's role to cure cancer, cure AIDS, or any of that. That is for other people to do. Mind you, we do have jobs that we need and we benefit society, but in just Obamacare alone, there's a whole page full of these brand new different institutions and bureaus and bureaucracies that have opened up recently. And frankly, those types of things, they may say, oh, we've created 8 new jobs. You've just created a brand new institute for relations with the tribe of this Indian tribe out in North Dakota. What the heck do we need that for now of all times? We don't need that now. That's a bogus job, and that's just a filler job. And sadly, we get a lot of those because the government likes to give away these jobs to their friends, because what these jobs are is you meet once a month and they pay you $100,000 a year. And so we create these types of things. That's not a real job. But yeah, there's certain things that the government is responsible for, will grant, and we are willing, our tax dollars, that's the necessary evil part of government we need to do. Curing diseases is not the government's role.
Can I follow up?
Real quick?
Yes. Ron Paul has said about FDA, because the only problem I had with that was, I mean, I'm not going to poison proof my own ibuprofen. So what was the Libertarian?
Well, yeah, the sad thing about things like the FDA is it's actually killing more people than it's saving, because there's so many drugs on the market that's taking 10, 15 years or whatever to get to the market that people in Europe have already, and they're saving lives. But here it's being slowed down. The process is costing millions of dollars and making it more expensive. If you're complaining about the cost of drugs, complain about things like the FDA and all this long approval process, until such time as a politically connected person gets something streamlined through, which is why the HIV drugs just flew through a lot faster than a lot of them, because I was politically pressured to do so. But we have plenty of situations where we could have a private organization with a licensing firm to come in and make opinions on it rather than that. But if it were more streamlined, we might be more agreeable to it. But the process is entirely cumbersome, only to, it just drives up the cost and slows it down, and it's costing all of us our life. Yeah.
So then, am I to understand that for things such as Social Security or health care or whatnot, or even with the FDA, you would want to try to privatize those services?
Oh yeah. Make no mistake about it. Social Security was ended up being a complete scam, and it was sold to us one way and ended up being something else. It's nothing more than what we call a Ponzi scheme. It assumed there'd be more and more workers in the future, and they'd be able to pay the benefits of everybody else. It does not work out mathematically. It's not going to work. And the returns that you're getting are getting worse and worse. And every time they raise the age limit or limit what we're going to get back, you can see just what a terrible investment it is. I know they wanted a social safety net, but it's just not working out very well.